Welcome, everyone. Nice to have you. Welcome to BG5 Live. This is episode 15. We have a special episode, Vanessa and I. We're going to be talking about the WA. So today's title is Exploring the OC16, or the WA, which is essentially large group dynamics. So our guest today is none other than Banu Cetin. She is one of the three teachers in the BG5 Institute, so we're excited to have her. Of course, we got Vanessa showing up. Vanessa, how's things for you today?
Things are great. Excited to be here and so excited to have Banu on as well.
Yeah. Vanessa, we forgot. You have to do this. The BG5 Live intro. Tell us about it.
Welcome to BG5 Live, the show for BG5 and human design professionals, students, and enthusiasts who want a deeper understanding of how to apply human design to business so that they can thrive in their own careers and also support their clients in doing the same.
Don't you think Vanessa should have her own radio show, going worldwide? She has such a good radio voice, I think. It really cracks me up. So it is October in the United States. We're still in the perfect autumn. So Vanessa, you've been to Boston. Banu, I don't think you have, or Sarah has either. So
I have.
There's a special time. It's actually happening this week where all the leaves start turning. So they go from green to orange to red to yellow. And it's just this beautiful kaleidoscope. And it only lasts about 2 weeks. So we're in the midst of it. So anytime I get a chance to go out, I go into the forest and check it all out. So, and here's Banu's chart. She is an intuitive advisor. Yeah, I can't wait. So Banu's going to tell us more about her chart, her design, how she came to BG5. And we're so excited to learn more about large group dynamics. But we do. I have a course coming up in 2 weeks. It's called The Art of Navigating the Career Design Chart. Essentially, this is about learning to keynote career design charts. Only 5 classes, roughly 90 minutes. Vanessa is going to be with me. Banu is going to be joining us. And we're looking at 5 different functions, and we're learning to keynote through that. So this class is about understanding all the layers of the design and bringing it together into crafting a story for our clients. So it's looking at charts in a new way. So if you're interested, the price is really inexpensive. It's only $200 and for the next week, and then we'll go up to $250. So if you're interested in this, learning how to keynote or learning how to synthesize charts, this is a class for you. All right, Vanessa, we're into the weather, the transits. What is happening in the transits in the coming weeks?
Yeah, so we are currently in trade 50, which we covered on the last episode. So if you want to learn more about that, go check out the previous episode. And we will be moving into trade 28, the game player, and that is happening on the 24th at 6:26 p.m. Eastern time or 18:26. And this one is near and dear to my heart. It's my unconscious grounding balance. So I have a lot of experience with this, the game player. And this sits on the survival instinct. It's very much about listening. It's in the individual thematic, the empowerment thematic, which is very acoustic. So it's about listening for which risks will lead to struggle. And this is about struggle, which brings purpose. There's awareness in the moment of what's worth fighting for or not. And it's important to note that all of the struggles do bring lessons that bring meaning and purpose to life. And it's about knowing which one of these are worthwhile pursuing. So the greatest fear here is that life might end before knowing what gives it meaning. And this can also show up as this fear of purposelessness or this fear of, oh my goodness, what doesn't make any sense? What does it all mean? And it is a survival instinct trait, as I said, which is constantly alerting you to danger. People that have this defined, or you might experience this during the transit, will often do things that most people won't. So it's so important to go back to your decision-making strategy or a strategy and authority in human design to know which of these challenges, struggles you actually want to engage in. And again, this is about the willingness to take risks and play the game of life, and meeting and confronting fears to develop a strong sense of confidence. And Banu, Mike, if you want to share anything about this particular trait, I would love to hear it.
All right, I got one. When I was younger, I would be a crazy risk taker. I would climb trees. I might have been like 10 years old. I would climb a tree like 50 feet high. And all of a sudden I would look down and like, whoa, well, look how high I am. And then I used to do the same thing. I was even in college. I was really into rock climbing for a period of time. And I would climb these rock faces without any ropes, which is, as we know, incredibly dangerous. So I would love taking those risks. And then it's something about that my heart would be going, and it just sort of made me feel alive.
It was
What about
interesting.
you? Oh, sorry, go
One of
ahead.
the ways that this has shown up for me when I was younger, whenever there was something I was afraid of, I was like determined to overcome that fear. And one example would be roller coasters. And I would go on the biggest, scariest roller coasters. And there was this one, it's one of those ones that lifts you up high. I also have a fear of heights and falling and then just drops you. And I remember I was so terrified of it. I have to go on it. So I went on it. I was still terrified after I went on it. I immediately went, and I literally went on it like 5 times until I got to the point where I'm like, okay, I have conquered that fear. I'm good. And now I can move on.
That's one way to face fear. That's a good story. Thanks. But what
You're
about you? You got any good stories for us?
Oh, well, I have the 38, which is the opposing to the
Yeah.
20. And as you can see, that's the only thing in my drive and stamina as well. So for me, 28 is interesting, but 38 for me, being the fighter, is my thing. So I'll fight, but not necessarily will the fight be for a good cause, and just for the sake of fighting, maybe, because I'm, that's how I'm conditioned a lot. But then with the 28, I think you can streamline really somehow into what risk is really worth fighting for, and also being able to take that risk, because sometimes it may mean you're risk averse, which I have been sometimes. Though I was a fighter, sometimes things were too risky, they seemed, and I wouldn't step into that. So these weeks, and I've been on some retreats and presenting and doing different things lately. So I'm like, okay, there are a couple of risks that I can take, and they are worth fighting for. Being the advisor, I got to watch out for my energy all the time. But yeah.
But no, I can totally picture you as, I don't know if you have any siblings or if you're the oldest sister, but you as an older sister, I would not want to mess with any of your younger siblings.
Oh yeah, I was the older one. Yeah.
Yes, I bet.
You can
Of course you
tell.
were. I would not mess with your younger siblings for anything in the world. Vanessa, take us away. Trait 44.
All right, so October 30th at 9:39 a.m. Eastern Time, we will be moving on to trait 44, which is alertness. And this one, again, we're still on the survival instinct here. So we are in the tribal thematic now, spot support, and it's instinctive alertness to patterns and possibilities that can bring success to the tribe and the business. And there is an ability to naturally remember and recognize patterns for living that have successfully provided for material needs. So this is a great one in business. And there's that alertness for the correct and spontaneous relationship or interaction that can move potential to possibility. So we often talk about this one as marketing, to the 26, which is sales. There's also an understanding of how propaganda works and the ability to use it for the good of the organization. And the patterns here, this alertness to the patterns that have been influenced by fears from the past. So oftentimes with this one, there can be that fear of patterns from the past resurfacing or repeating themselves. So something to be aware of during this transit. And you want to be careful to not unnecessarily exaggerate or overcommit or make promises that the business can't actually keep. So I do not have this one defined. I would love to hear, I don't think Banu or Mike have it either, but I know Banu has the electromagnetic. So would love to hear your guys' experience with this.
I gotta admit, for the 44, I don't have anything. So Banu, if you got something, we're all ears.
Yeah, so the 44 has always been an important one for me, having the 26 defined twice. And then I also have the 1, which we're going to talk about coincidentally, I think, but these are both sales capabilities. So 26 is the sales, like in a bigger organization, and then the 1 is the sales outlet when you're in a smaller organization or a penta. And I've been a salesperson all my life in my corporate work that I did for 25 years. So no wonder I was a salesperson. But then 24 always comes in handy. And I really benefited from a few people in my team who had the 44. So then like we forming the whole strength together and having that as part of the team was great, something we could really utilize in that sense. It's always good because even if you're not selling the product, sometimes it's important to be able to convince people on your ideas. You know, your projects are worth investing in. Your team is the team to invest in. You know, give me the funds and here's what we will do. So to be able to manipulate. And in the end, we're not doing it for ourselves as a team because we're part of the bigger organization. So then manipulating the tribe for its own good and receiving what we need so we can continue is always a good thing. So I've benefited a lot from that knowingly, and I knew who in my team had the trait as well. So we worked together on important stuff.
Yeah.
So
That's a great story to just highlight, using your design in the most beneficial way possible. So thanks for that story. That was great. Vanessa, anything else with that, or are we moving on?
I think we can move on to trait 1, creative self-expression. And this one is going into transit on November 4th, right before midnight Eastern time. So if you're in Europe, this will be happening November 5th. And Banu, since you have this one, would you like to share all about it?
Well, it's I think everything is like in the name. So this is like a trait that speaks to itself in the way it's named in a way. So it's this having that creative expression that's there. And you can only it only comes out when you're true to yourself. So it's not like you can't copy people. It's just there or it's not at the same time. And it is a great thing to come up with ideas, being able to work with things in your head, and so then they form into something creative. And the good thing is about it is it's also empowering others. So as a person, just having those creative ideas, having that creative self-expression forward, then somebody with this can inspire others, which like I really experienced during my time working in like team environments and working with my team and other teams as well. And even I think currently, just by being me and finding these new ways of doing things, I can inspire others as well in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I have the 8 and I am so excited when I'm around, and everybody, well, you, Mike, and Sarah, who's also here, Sarah has the entire strength. I'm always excited to be around people that have the 1, and I'm always excited for the transit as well to complete that strength for me and see what comes out. So
yeah, and
yeah.
the thing with the 8, if I may add, is it's no wonder like a lot of you have the 8, and I've been invited into this conversation, and thank you for that. So for me, with the 1 and 8 is one of my bridging as well. People with 1 as well, I find that we don't like speaking about ourselves and promoting our work. So the creative self-expression is there, and I will do creative things, and I love doing that. But I don't like marketing myself or marketing what I do, even when I worked at corporate or, you know, now with everything I'm doing. So it's always good to have an 8 to speak about all these creative things that a person with a trait 1 can do. It's always worked well for me. Yes, I always look to people with 8 to speak about the things that I do, and it works out perfectly. And then because it will just work on its own. Yes, it's always looking for that 8, so I don't need to consciously seek anything. The magic happens on its own. It's in the mechanics. So
Nice, I love that. And I bet Mike can relate to you very much on that.
Oh,
Knowing Mike as I do.
I just want to say ditto, 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 ditto. Yeah, I wish I had like an 8 in my pocket anytime I need to market. Here, just tell me what to say, tell me what to do. Marketing is my, I don't want to say kryptonite, but I want to get better at it, but it's a real chore. Whereas being creative, it's so interesting that the trait 1 exists in the identity function, identity and direction. I think, Banu, you probably share this too. I identify so much of my identity is being creative. It's just something that comes so naturally.
Yeah.
I love it.
And just like building on what you said, Mike, to me, knowing that I don't have the 8, it gave me great relief, knowing that it's not my job. It doesn't come naturally to me to do the PR thing, to do the marketing thing, to speak about these things. So it gave me great relief that I don't really have to force trying to get better at it. I know I need to look to others, and it's my bridging too. So that kind of plays in well, but always, working in collaboration and looking to someone else who could do that for me. And like in corporate life, I've had managers who really promoted me, even to promote within the company as well, who had the 8. The institute, the people I work with in the institute who promote my classes, me in general, they usually have the 8. So it's always good to know how the mechanics work, so you don't try to be something you're not, and then it's easy.
Yeah, that's so true. And we're so lucky to have Sarah, who, like Vanessa just mentioned, she has the whole 1/8. So the
She's
creative
a
side of
powerhouse
expression.
in
Yeah,
itself, that design.
we're so lucky to have Sarah. So if you're just listening and you don't know who Sarah is, so Sarah is the assistant director of the BG5 Business Institute. So she not only sort of oversees things, she's also, really heads up marketing, and she's wonderful at it. And she's actually building a team for us. So we're very lucky to be having her. So thank you, Vanessa. We appreciate the transit as always. We're going to move on to focusing on Banu. So Banu, I'd love to hear, I always ask this of our guests. Two questions I want to have you explore is, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background. And the second question is, how did you find or discover BG5/human design?
Yeah, well, thank you. First of all, thank you for inviting me. It's great to
Yeah.
be here, and thank you for the questions. So I spent 25 years in the IT industry. Worked only for 2 companies. They were American companies. I worked for Xerox, and Microsoft was my last company before I became an entrepreneur doing my own thing. A lot of work in customer service, a little bit of marketing, and then mainly in sales. And before I left, I was a sales director at Microsoft, leading multiple geographies. And I think it was 8, 9 years ago that I found human design. It was through I was actually doing some mind coaching and some breathwork practice. And there I found human design. And there was like some training around it for a couple of days. And I'm just like finding myself so drawn to this. So I started exploring it, and I'm looking at it and just reading everything I find back in those days. Then I saw there's this business application of it. And then I had an invitation to join like a class for free somehow. So that was my invitation to just jump into that first foundation class that Karen was doing back then. And then I was just hooked somehow. And looking back, for me, it was like, because I spent such a long time in corporate life, in business, I said, if I am going to do human design, which I'm very much attracted to, I'm so passionate about, what can I put into it from me? So what do I bring into this, apart from just learning the knowledge and passing that through? So I thought I could bring my business experience into this. So that's the uniqueness that I could add. So that's why I just went into BG5. So that's what I was interested in. And so then I became a consultant. All these years, I'm also working at Microsoft, of course. So it kind of became my second job in a way as well, just learning this, being a student of it, and then later becoming a consultant of it. Then I was invited by the Institute to become a teacher. And it was really interesting because my life purpose, as you see here, life work team, is dedication. And that's like being a teacher who helps others move ahead and transform and change by telling them about the same thing over and over and over. So then when I was invited to be a teacher of BG5, that's like, it gave me the chills. This is it. This is what I should, maybe talk about over and over and over. So yeah, that's my story. And now I'm just following up my passion. So I'm out of corporate life, so I'm more dedicated, spending my time here now. My husband and we have our own consulting company, taking human design to businesses. So that's my story.
It's a good story.
And yeah, and it just helped me. Just finding it helped me so much, both in my personal life and then at work. First of all, in my own career, and then becoming a people manager, also working with my teams, the people in my team as well, and being able to help them, guide them, lead them, and be successful. Sales is always a stressful job, especially in the geographies I managed. Like I managed South Africa, I managed Israel, Turkey, always these volatile markets. It's not, things are not calm. Every day something else happens to hinder the sales. So it really helped me in that sense. Yeah, so that's
having
me in a
the
nutshell.
48, the fighter from
Oh yeah, I gotta be a fighter. You wouldn't survive in such an environment. Yeah.
So, Banu, I'm really curious. The theme of working in large organizations, large groups, working with teams, it seems it was just in your DNA. It was just something that you really gravitated to. And it sounds, for all intents and purposes, you were really successful at it. So you made the transition, you sort of serendipitously found human design, or it found you. I think a lot of us feel like human design or BG5 found us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the transition? So you left corporate, but in the meantime, you were studying BG5, you made the transition to teacher, but along the way, you also opened your own practice. Can you share some of that story with us? Because I know a lot of people who are listening to this are either students or recent graduates or someone interested in it, and they're trying to understand, how do I apply this in the real world? And you're someone who straddled all of those sort of facets. Anything you can share with us about that?
Yeah, sure. So I think the first part I want to answer this question is in the how I used it during my time at working for bigger companies and managing teams. Because in the end, you can understand the personal application of it, but the moment somebody moves into a small organization like a Penta or a large organization, the individual can no longer be the individual that they are, because the mechanics change. So we're pulled into something else now. And for me,
just pause 1 sec. Say that again. I think this is really important. I'm sorry, I want to highlight this, because when people talk about group dynamics, but they don't fully understand it the way we do from this design perspective. So say that again and let us know a little bit more about it.
All right. Yes. So understanding ourselves at the individual level, the design is always very important. Being able to align ourselves to our true design and act on our decision-making strategy and not through the mind. So that's, of course, very important for an individual to understand. But business doesn't exist in a vacuum. It happens with people. So you either work with people, you sell to somebody, you buy from somebody. Yes, they're vendors, clients, employees, bosses. So business is always done in multiples. You can't do business on your own. You need somebody to sell and buy. Yes. So then for business, this group dynamics is so important. It really becomes important. And we go into these groups day in and day out. So a Penta starts at 3 people. So a small group, when we look at unified group dynamics, the moment you have 2 people, you can look at it from a partnership perspective. The moment you have 3 people, then it's a Penta. So then it's a small group dynamic now. So then the individual now is vibrating to a different frequency, because it's affected. It's because we come together, and now the auras are collected And this transauric form, so we're in form, we're in our bodies, in our design. But then when we come together, this new energetic form, it doesn't have a form like a body, but it's there in the energy. So it becomes the background frequency. And then certain things get pulled out of us when we enter that equation versus when we were alone. And in business, of course, to do business, we got to be part of groups. We got to interact with people. So then to know what gets pulled out of you in a group, what are the things that you can do well, what's not your job, understanding all this does make a big difference in somebody's life. And for me, to understand it, and then there's the OC16 component of it, of course, like the moment we go above 10 people, around 9 to 10, then it morphs into a large organization, which is a different animal of its own. Yes, it's a different entity that's formed. Then to be able to understand that as well, kind of really gives you the full picture of this individual. It can be an alpha, yes, a leader in an organization. It can be an owner or somebody who is part of that organization, just contributing as a team member or an employee. So then by looking at all these components, the individual chart, the small business and penta unified group dynamics for the individual, plus the large group dynamics for the individual, then we have a holistic view of, you know, this person in business in a way.
I think that's
And
one of
for
the,
me, yes,
I
go
was
ahead,
gonna
Mike.
say, I think that's one of the clearest explanations that I've heard of small and large group dynamics, the way you just described that. I thought that was perfect. Good job.
Yeah, thank you. And the reason I can talk about it like this is when I found human design and it found me, I was part of a team. I was part of corporate life. I had my own team that I was part of. Later, I became a people manager. So then I was leading the team, which was part of a larger organization. So then, of course, the individual design is very important. And then everything else in the other part is also very important. So personally, it's really helped me in my career. I truly believe I wouldn't have gotten to where I was before, you know, in my career if I hadn't found human design and, you know, first at the individual level, understanding how my mind and my shadows work, to be able to tap into my decision-making strategy and an align. And then know also about how I interact in the business and what are my skills? What do I bring to the table? What do I not bring to the table? So I don't try to do everything myself. And how can I take advantage of it in a way? Which power bases do I get pulled into? So just to be able to understand this really helped me. And then as a people manager, I was able to then also see the group dynamics. You know, assign tasks according to people's design, if I had the flexibility to communicate with my team in a way that can honor their design. And they also in time, of course, learned how to communicate better with each other in a way. And I ended up managing like the most successful teams within the region. We were part of a big region, Middle East and Africa, that's 72 countries. And the teams I managed always, you know, we always, sales targets are always high. And at Microsoft, they're very, I should say, very aggressive in a way, always looking for growth because the opportunity is always there. So that's what we did, being able to grow businesses. And I think just knowing this, it's just helped me achieve that.
Okay, so here's what I want to do. Vanessa, you can chime in with any questions. So let's break it down a little bit. Take us through the basic theory. And so for people, and most people who are listening to this have no idea what OC16 or the Y is. So why don't you just take us through on a most basic level and help us understand how we can use this. So I could tell you were so fluid with it. You were just, you know, sort of working at a high level, but I want you to take us down. And so we have a couple charts to talk us through it and help us understand how this works.
Yeah. So as I was saying, the moment the individual works into some type of grouping, the first, of course, group, we could think of these like Legos. So like individuals come and then they're the building blocks that go into some bigger form of organization. So the individuals really make up the small groups, which we call pentas. And then when the organization is really growing, so from 3 to 5 people, we would look at it as a unified group, as a penta. So usually in a business setting, this can be a small business, it can be a team within a bigger organization. And then the moment the individual works into a penta, what's in their design, the central column in their design. So if you could just point the penta area for maybe the newcomers, if there are any, those skills start getting called out of people in a way. And then as the organization kind of starts growing, and by the way, like an individual's comfort level within a small team, do they belong in a small team? Is it just for short periods of time, or they're meant to be in that environment all the time? So we can see all of this from somebody's design in the chart. And then if the organization is growing, so the moment we step into about 9 people, then we are stepping into the WA, which is the large organization. So we would look at like 3 pentas of 3, yes, that makes up the 9, and then somebody to head it. So like an alpha to lead the organization. So then when that auric form is happening, when we have that many people, it morphs into something else energetically. Yes. And if you think of it like you go to a party, people start talking, we always come together in small groups. And then the more people add, these pentas kind of break. Yes. So like you can't talk like 6, 9 people at the same time. So if the group grows, then they break into smaller groups. But then they're organizing themselves somehow if it's in a business or environment. So that's where we have the OC16, so the WA. So Ra was given the WA information. And it starts with 10 people, yes, but the 16 breakdown of the 16 comes from 3 pentas of 5 people, but we can start looking at it from 3 people because a penta is 3 to 5 people plus an alpha. And this is the way it kind of organizes itself. So that's why OC16 is the organizing channels, because when the group grows, how we're organizing that transauric form and the communication channels really become important. And depending on somebody's design, certain things will get activated in you. And somebody might have OC16 strengths or traits or not. It doesn't mean if you don't have them, you can't be part of a bigger organization, larger organization. Everybody could, of course, work in any type of environment, but some of us will thrive in certain ways in bigger organizations. And with this information, we can see that. And then we can look at this from a team perspective and also from an individual's perspective. If we were to coach with a client, work with a leader, for example, in a big organization, or an owner, for example, who wants to grow their business, all this information comes really handy. There's lots of depth to human design. Yes, there are layers and layers and layers of it. And then when you come to group dynamics, there are more layers to it. It's like this magical thing that unfolds when you start looking into this information.
So you might have already said this, but there's 2 terms that we talk about. So OC16 and WA. How would you, if you had like to say a couple words to describe each, are they the same thing?
They're the same thing. They're the same thing in that sense, but the WA is any form of people coming together. So for example, when we go into a shopping mall, we're in a WA. So these are people who came to shop. So even if you weren't thinking of buying a lot of things, you go in and you end up, buying more somehow because there's a vibe there. And then you're conditioned in a way when you're part of that WA. Or like if you go to a football game, it's a large number of people who are there to watch a game. And then it's always different from watching it from in front of TV, of course, because the energetics work differently. Yes. So you're part of the group now when you go and watch it in the arena or wherever the game is played. So the WA is that, and OC16 is like the business name for it. So Ra was actually given the WA, but then later, as he was talking about it, teaching it, he talked about it in the OC16 sense. That's how he kind of, I believe, how he organized the information to apply to business.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Vanessa, do you have any questions for Banu about OC16 WA dynamics?
No, I'm just fascinated by everything that she is covering. No
Yeah.
questions so far.
So the human design is becoming more and more popular. A lot of people know about their design. They know the personal application of it. But then once you start talking about all this other, rich information that we can get out of human design, this part not everybody's aware of. And if they knew, of course, there's a lot of information here that if somebody could take and apply it really in the business world, it would mean so much, both to the person and to the teams that are there.
So we're looking at a chart right now. It says the WA takes advantage of all circuitry. So the WA is it's a tribal organism that supports the growth and development of its members through financial support and education. So Banu, you talked about even if you don't have one of the six OC16 strengths, you can still exist, you can still work, you can still function within a larger group dynamic. This chart, I think, illustrates this. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So the way it works is because we talked about this, the energy coming together, it kind of numbs us down in a way when we enter it. If you think of it like as an individual, let's say it's an individual working for different companies, or like a football player playing for different teams. The individual is always the same, but then it depends which organization they're part of. And with like a football player can play so well with one team and not so well with the other team. And that's all because of all the energetics and, whatever is happening in the background frequency of those people coming together. So when people come together in bigger organizations like this, 16, but as I said, it can start from 10 in a way, because then we can break it down to 3 pentas and a leader. It kind of becomes a numbing mechanism where the individual is now part of this bigger organization, and certain things get pulled out of them. And as opposed to the penta, which was that central area that you showed in the other charts. So when an individual enters into a small group, only that penta area, so the central column are the business skills, the 12 business skills that gets pulled out of a person that's part of a team. So those are the only 12 things the organization that Penta is interested in, and it will ignore the rest of the chart, really. It will take away from the person, the individual, what the Penta needs, and it's in that central column. So, but when this Penta is part of a bigger organization, so now the individual is part of a bigger organization, then the WA, so the OC16 kind of utilizes all the circuitry. So it doesn't ignore the rest of the chart. It doesn't just look at the central column like the penta does, although there's a connection in the 214, of course, but then it utilizes all the charts. So if you look at this like Excel looking chart that we have on the slide that you're showing, Mike. So as you can see, this covers all the strengths and traits. There's a lot here, like we see 45, 21, then there's a power base related to that. There's competitiveness in the 51, 25. So these are all the ones marked on the body graph that we're seeing on the side of the chart. But then there's a power base. So then it becomes like a department head and its power base. So depending on a person's design, we get definition within the power base, and that's how we contribute to the organization. But then we're also dumped down. That's why it's the power base, because there's a departmental head that kind of controls it. And then as you can see within the chart, there's only one outlet to the communication and action, to the expression. That's in the 4521. So then this is a tribal organization, and there is one voice that's out from the 45. So then the leader of this OC16, the CEO in the business sense, would be representing everybody. Or like if this was like a country, then it would be the Queen of England that represents, or now the King, that represents the whole country, for example. So there's one outlet, that one person that speaks on behalf of all this OC16, the tribe, and it says we, because it speaks on behalf of everybody. So
So
these are the things.
let me try to
Yeah.
translate for for people. So we could tell that Banu is an amazing expert in this. So I'm gonna do the little translation if you don't mind.
Please do, yes.
So we have the next chart, and I recognize that if you're listening to this and you don't have access to the video, it's okay. I'll try to interpret it for you. So there are 6 strengths in the penta. There are 6 strengths in the OC16. If you have one of them, you can be geared towards either small groups or large groups. So this is what Vanessa, Banu was talking about. Now, if you don't have any of those, that's okay. You know, you might be great by yourself, you might be good solo. But if you find yourself in a larger organization, so again, this is what Banu's talking about, depending on your design, you can have a lot of strengths or even a trait in a particular area of design. And someone like Banu can take your different strengths and traits and say, you would probably work better in this kind of department. So the 6 departments are management, competitiveness, that can be, you know, making sure that, you know, the company is doing
Competitive enough, yes.
Yeah. Direction, logical enforcement, interaction, that's the social dynamic, and innovation, which is, you know, coming up with new things. So based on your design, someone like Banu and the people she trains can help you understand this is where you want to be, because you have the most to contribute. That's what she's talking about with the power base.
Yeah,
Did I
and
get that
then
right, Banu?
without the person, thank you for that, Mike. Thank you for the translation. And then without you knowing it, you'll be pulled into that power base anyways. So you would find, like, if there was a task group, you would be pulled into the group that you have most activations in a way. And then this information, of course, is not only efficient for the individual, but then we can look into how to organize people within teams so they can efficiently work and create material success, because that's why businesses are made. They're here to create material success. So we can use all these dynamics in small groups. We look at the gaps. We try not to have gaps, but then in larger organizations, gaps become areas where the departments can communicate in a way, and how the alpha can communicate down a message. So this whole group is going through the same direction in a way, and being able to compete with what's out there as well. So then the companies that are applying this can start pulling individuals from different groups. And even if, like, a small business wanting to grow into a large business, we can use this information to engineer, like, teams, who to pick if we want to grow into a larger organization, and things like that. Yes. So there was a question in the chat. So if you're a solo entrepreneur, then if you're on your own, the OC16 dynamics don't come into play. Right? So the moment you have to have that energy, the auras of people, and forming together, so it will be out there. But then, though OC16 doesn't come into play, I could perhaps say it would be important to you to compete, to be first in things. So even at the individual level, they have similar connotations in that sense.
All right, Banu, I hate to do this, but we just moved through this so fast. I know, we went so fast through it. All right, let me give you just a highlight here. Banu, as you can tell, is really passionate about this area. And if this interests you, if things that we've talked about in this show sort of pique your interest, if you're someone who's working in corporate, wants to work in corporate, or is really passionate about working with larger groups, I suggest and invite you to jump into this class. So Banu's teaching OC16 is a 3-semester class. It's a certification class. It starts January 23rd, which is a Thursday at 10 o'clock UTC. So I think that would be 10 a.m. in New York time, give or take. So Banu, is there anything you want to tell us about this class? for
Well,
people
I'm
who-
really looking forward to this class. There's a lot of interest in it as well. I'm really passionate for it because I think I can bring in a lot of examples because I've lived it in a way. So it's the lens that I always take. And I'm lucky and blessed to have Boris assist me. He also spent 30 years in corporate organizations. And he also brings in a lot of expertise. And to me, like everything we do at the Institute, what I try to bring in is the practical application of the information. The knowledge you can always get somehow, but then what do you do with it? If you're a manager or you're coaching a company, you have some clients, or you want to apply it to your organization to grow it. That's what interests me. That's what I'm passionate about. So I hope to have a very jam-packed class with lots of examples and application of it as well. Yeah, so excited.
Yeah, thank you, Banu. So for our listeners, Banu is one of those people who transcends, so she knows the theory and is really good at the application. So if you're interested in this, you're going to get a big dose of both. Banu, thank you so much. On behalf of Vanessa and I, we loved having you. This was a great session. So unique learning about these dynamics. I really appreciate it. Vanessa, anything else you want to add as we sign off?
Yeah, so just so everybody knows, OC16 is an advanced certification in the BG5 Business Institute. So you will want to already be at the very least in your third semester of the BG5 consultant certification. And for people that are interested in BG5 overall, there's new classes starting all of the time. You work your way through, you get that foundational knowledge so that you can be ready for OC16 if you don't have those fundamentals yet. And I'm sure that if you are interested in OC16, but you don't have the prereqs yet, Banu will be teaching it again and again. So you want to get started as soon as you can so that you can get to that level.
Hey, that was a nice recap. Thank you. Banu, so great to have you on the show.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much, Banu. So wonderful to have you share your expertise.
Vanessa, when's our next show? We are on...
You always ask me this and I'm never prepared. Oh, that first line is not showing up, is it? Okay, so it is the second Tuesday of November, which is actually November 12th. So that's going to be 3 weeks from today instead of 2 weeks.
All right, so we have a 3-week break. So November 12th and the 25th. Yeah, because October is a 5-week month. Kind of crazy.
Yes, 5 Tuesdays.
All right, everyone. We'll see you in 3 weeks. We'll miss you until then.
See you in 3 weeks.
Bye for now.
Bye.